Hi, I'm Dr. McKenzie. Today I'm going to talk to you about why people experience low energy and fatigue and exhaustion. When we wonder about the mechanism of these things, we have to look at the cell itself. Because in the cell is an area called the mitochondria. And the mitochondria makes our energy for us. And so a few things about the mitochondria. Number one, your mitochondria are inherited through your mom. So your mom gives you these mitochondria that make the energy. And you're only born with so many of these mitochondria. If the mitochondria are less, then you will age more quickly. And if you have more, you age slower. But there's other things that also affect our mitochondria. And so we're going to talk about those things. So number one, and I have a diagram here, but there's other things that are not on the diagram, so I'm going to mention those first. Number one, the thyroid does affect the mitochondria. There's receptors for thyroid hormone in every single cell. So if you have a thyroid problem, there's about 24 different ways that you can have a thyroid problem. This will affect your mitochondria, so yes, it will affect your energy. Other kinds of hormonal issues also can affect the mitochondria, such as mostly sex hormones. Another thing that I should mention is if you don't sleep. So if you don't get at least 6 hours of sleep a day, it will affect your mitochondria, and so at the same time you will have less energy. Another thing that I didn't mention is chemotherapy. Chemotherapy has a negative effect on the mitochondria, which is why when you go through chemotherapy, you feel very exhausted. Another thing that I'll mention would be autoimmune disease. So autoimmune disease, especially if it's lupus or something that's ANA positive, anti-nuclear antibody positive, it will have a profound effect on your energy levels. And so if you have lupus or if you have any kind of autoimmune disease, you have to ask yourself, how do I put it in remission so that I can have more energy and not be as bothered by the autoimmune disease. You can also inherit through your mother mitochondrial mutations that will affect your energy. So if you have a history of your mother having lots of health problems and her mother having lots of health problems, then you can investigate to find out if you have a mitochondrial disorder. And the best way to find out would be through a geneticist. Also, if you have any kind of blood sugar abnormality, we call this dysglycemia, meaning that your blood sugar goes too high or your blood sugar goes too low, or if you have issues with, like say, PCOS or insulin resistance, then these things will affect the mitochondria because the energy gets fed by glucose, and you also have to have oxygen as well, or the mitochondria will fail and you'll create mitochondrial demise. So how do you know if you have insulin resistance? Well, if your abdomen protrudes, you have insulin resistance, and the more that it protrudes, the more insulin resistance that you have. So going after losing weight is a very important thing for mitochondria. Also, if you have any kind of anemia, this will affect the mitochondria because oxygen is carried in your red blood cells, and your mitochondria need this to be able to allow the mitochondria to make the energy. Also, if you have any kind of breathing issue, such as asthma, or if you have a large abdomen, that will affect your lungs' ability to expand, which will also affect how well you breathe. So any kind of breathing issue will create hypoxia, and this hypoxia will create mitochondrial demise. If you have a sedentary lifestyle and you're not getting exercise, then you're not getting stimulation to the cells as much, and so that will also affect the mitochondria. So being active is very important for your mitochondria. Another thing that will affect the mitochondria is having chronic inflammation. Now, in the United States, most people have the standard American diet. We call it the SAD diet. This diet creates inflammation, and this inflammation is very harmful for your mitochondria. Also, free radical damage will affect the mitochondria as well. The number one things that will give us free radical damage is eating foods that are sprayed, so eating foods that are not organic. Also smoking, or being around people that smoke, or eating large amounts of sugar. This will create a lot of free radical damage, and this free radical damage will affect our energy because it affects our mitochondria. So when we want to treat mitochondrial conditions, there's some things that you can't do anything about, like if you have the mutation that affects the mitochondria, but most people that have low energy, they have more than one of these variables. And so we have to try to go after the underlying condition, and we want to get that mitochondria working. And so going after the underlying cause is important. And then I'm going to tell you about a supplement that I think is the #1 supplement for mitochondria, and that's called trisomal glutathione. And the reason why it's called trisomal glutathione is because it's absorbable on 3 different mucosal membrane layers, and so it's incredibly useful. But glutathione itself is very, very good for the mitochondria. Trisomal glutathione is extremely absorbable, so it's, in my opinion, is the perfect thing for your mitochondria. We recommend this for our patients, and so if you're interested in getting some, you can contact our clinic. Our clinic's name is right up here. So anyway, that's all for today, and I will catch you next time.